doing it. You supposed to be happy you sitting there with Kid L. Why you mad?
The Kid L podcast.
2-1, rocking and rolling. John Barlow is back in the building, man. Since the last time you've been on, how are you feeling about your campaign? How are you feeling about running for Detroit mayor?
We're feeling great, and Kid L, man, you're the best. I can't thank you enough for allowing me another opportunity to come on and just be a part of your great production, but most of all, being able to talk to your audience. We're feeling great. Every campaign has its ups and downs. We have them every day, but the way that we've been stumping the ground, knocking on doors, talking to Detroiters on a daily basis, understanding more of the pain points, the needs, where we can really serve as a leader. This has been a phenomenal experience that I would never want to dismiss or probably never forget, of course.
Yes. How, compared to other times, have you ever do campaigning that was this intense? Have you ever had to be a part of campaigning where it was like every single day, like in the trenches and really trying to figure it out?
Well, I knew it was going to be a big challenge and task. I didn't expect this to come lightly or easy. I believe where we are as a campaign, we've had several restructurings to deal with the current political environment, which is very peculiar in Detroit. There's only so many consultants in the campaigns or willing to sign on to a campaign. Mm-hmm. And so you really have to have a trust and a loyalty. And because Detroit is so small, everybody's family. And to be able to decipher and to discern whose loyalty is where is something that I pride myself on. But then I'm also very cognizant of. And I tend to manage my campaign in a way that shields everyone from anything that can cause a misstep or a misalignment with where we're trying to head to.
Yes. I'm noticing that there's a lot of debates going on with a lot of candidates for Detroit mayor, but I'm not seeing you go toe-to-toe with any of them, like on the TV scale or on the broadcast scale. What's the situation with you not really being in those rooms or on the broadcast where there's debates happening?
Well, for the average citizen and the average resident or the average voter, a lot of us who are just average people don't always understand how polls are conducted, who pays for those polls, and then what should you really extract or reinterpret from those polls. And so those polls that have been done to the liking of some of the other candidates have set the stage for being able to shield and to be able to limit the amount of candidates that can present their platform and their message. For one, that's not democratic. In New York, they had over 9 candidates. Everyone got to debate on the live stage. We're not even taking note of a city that's thrived and been bigger than us for a great amount of time. But even more so, it shows the political environment that we have in Detroit. What's so funny is in the Mackinac debate, they allowed Fred Durrell to participate. And then at the Channel 4 debate, they left him out of it. So which one is it? Can we have 5 candidates? Is that stage too big? Is 4 candidates too big?
Do they determine it by like how big your following is, or by how big, is it a pay to play thing? Or like, how does it really work?
Let's be clear with one another. Mm-hmm. And you know this more than I do. Mm-hmm. If we're really going to talk about following or anything like that, they don't know how to calculate the numbers. We as influencers and we as millennials and next generations, we can calculate following pretty quickly. What they do is they either have a robot call 500 people. They might have someone call and ask leading questions and then extract answers from the last few questions. Or they might just create the numbers themselves. It's a myriad of ways that they can create this report or poll and present it to the media.
Do they think to themselves, who are the most popular people we can get that are running for mayor because that's what's going to get the most viewership? Or do they go, who's going to do the best job or who has the best incentives for the city?
Well, the question is who paid for the poll to be conducted.
Okay.
Whoever's interest there was to pay for this poll is normally the person who normally has the best story or narrative coming out of that report or that poll once they're done.
You can create your own poll, and as long as you pay for some type of research to be done for it, but it could not possibly be accurate.
It's a coupling. You have to pay the right research firm to conduct it and make sure that they have enough good relationships with the media and the general public to create a general consensus.
And are they ever biased when they make these polls? Like, as far as the people that are doing the research?
They're getting paid to do it. We're not talking about third-party polls being conducted. We're not talking about those who have said, listen, the Black Caucus did a poll before anybody announced. And half of the debates have used that poll. I had not even announced before, and I was like the second to third person. I was last to announce, but I took out petitions well before that. Nobody had formally announced when the Black Caucus poll was done, but they still have used that poll as an indicator of who's leading the race.
Yes.
That makes no sense.
Very, very interesting stuff, man. Damn, it kind of changes your perspective on the behind the scenes of what you guys are about or what's going on behind the scenes, you know?
Well, 1,400 people out of that were polled, 500, 400, and 500, that has created the narrative that now the corporations can push in order to have their token candidate. Every candidate has to show their financial reports. I guarantee you will see multiple donors from multiple corporate interests that have been sitting right here in Detroit on multiple campaigns. They've hedged all their bets. The only campaign that they haven't donated to is mine.
Damn.
Because normally I don't take it for any other reason but to make community impact when dealing with a corporation. Not one single penny, especially in the political race where my name is on the line.
So how do you fund your campaign if you're not getting too much backing?
What's been odd is I've been able to compete and everything has been out of pocket. Me and my family who have been working people all of our lives, really me as an entrepreneur, my mom has been, of course, as a single mother, being always working for the city or some type of agency associated. And honestly, I've been really scraping up pennies. A few family members might donate a few dollars, but I only take money from people that I trust that aren't going to have any type of direct request to getting their corporate interests over or to use the community or use Detroit because I love Detroit too much.
Well, when you look at like presidential campaigns compared to what's happening now, there's millions of dollars behind a presidency, right? Like if you're running for president, there's millions of dollars backing you, pushing you forward. Elon Musk might be pushing Donald Trump, whatever the case might be, right? On your campaign or the running for Detroit mayor, you're competing against people who have possibly millions of dollars or something along the lines of funding to that degree. Have you seen anybody in the past that has had limited funding surpass people who have millions of dollars of funding?
Well, the race in New York, again, they knocked on more doors than any other candidate. And that's where you have a grassroots campaign, almost similar to Barack Obama, being able to really tap into the grassroots. You can either do it by knocking on doors or getting your message out there. In this digital age, you can definitely get your message out there. Now, how you do it is very strategic, but you definitely can reach the same amount of people without having as much of a army to be behind you. And so there are a few ways that you can skin a cat. However, what I do believe is that Detroiters are looking for something authentic. They're not looking for the same politics as usual candidate who will give them a political speech this year and not return for 4 years. It doesn't make sense for Detroit to commit to insanity when it has not gotten out of the stagnant state that it finds itself in without being able to solve housing, transportation, food, as well as really public safety. And public safety ultimately is at the forefront wrapping around all these things, because if not, we can't attract the businesses to be able to provide the jobs to boost the revenue, tax base or otherwise.
Yeah, we're kind of witnessing that with a lot of events not permitting certain artists or bands or businesses to prosper because they're worried about some type of violent acts that take place or things that in history they are afraid of reoccurring again, which it can be a real concern, right, for people because there's history and data to prove that some events have had violent acts, upon them, like shootings and whatnot. I think even recently, fireworks event, there was a few things this year alone where people were like, "What the hell? Like, should we go out?" And how do you address that concern? And what's the best way to kind of mitigate that and make people believe that something will happen and change?
So, one, we have to get into a village approach. If we're not approaching problems as a village, meaning that, one, there's a leader who understands that by leading, you put yourself at the lowest level so that you can learn from everybody else. If we don't have that approach first, and then secondly, getting everyone to the table and having a unified agenda, lastly, we won't be able to turn things like that around because we will always be branded in a negative image. Part of the reason why I'm on the podcast today is because a lot of things need to be addressed head on. We can't wait for the world to tell us what our narrative or what our story is. If something bad happens, there's always some bad incident that can tarnish a lifelong of good work. And so a lifetime of good work, rather. And so I don't want us to ever get down on the fact that we've had one bad incident. What we need to do is come together to make sure that we go after goals that ensure that we don't have any bad incidents. And if we put our thinking caps on and put on our village hat, I think that we can achieve things like that, such as the fireworks, having a shooting. I think we need to increase some of the civic engagement. Last time we talked about New Era and Zeke. I believe after talking to a number of citizens, I need more than just New Era Detroit Forest or Detroit 300. I need Neighborhood Watch at an all-time optimal level because I need community and citizens coming together to ensure that conflict resolution and preventive measures at an all-time high. And that's the only way we make Detroit community again, by recreating that approach to family in a very clinical way to make sure we offset any mental health or any trauma that we've all been exposed to, but we can work our way out of it. The best thing that we can be doing right now is setting the example of rising above any situation.
It seems possible, but it's also scary at the same time to fully believe it, just because there's so many ways to bypass security measures these days. Like, I go to events, I get invited to tons and tons of events, and sometimes I do see areas of like neglect. I'm not saying just in Detroit, I'm saying a lot of events. I go to across the country sometimes where I'll see like there's loopholes or there's ways to bypass the security measures in order to do this or do that. And it's almost like you can't say zero. You can't say that there's a 0% chance anything will happen in the future, but you can say we can lower the odds significantly if we take these certain approaches, right?
Yeah. You definitely cannot always prevent everything. There's no way in the world that you can totally bypass or totally create a fully secure environment. You can only do your best. The question becomes, are we doing our best? Whoever's hosting that event is always doing their best because they have everything to lose.
Yes.
However, as a community, are we doing our best? And this is where I tell you that there's a very big difference in how we approach things. I had an organization that recently threw a Greek picnic. They threw it in Highland Park because they had an incident a year before, and there was, I believe, a shooting. These are college kids coming to a Greek picnic. Well, Detroit didn't want them to have it anymore, and so they went to Mama's Shoe in Highland Park, and they conducted it there, I think a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. No incidents whatsoever. So to say that we're not capable of no incidents,
yes,
is not something that I would put on it, because I think we are capable. But sure, I do believe that there are wake-up calls that we have all the time that remind us to lock down and take control and limit more the exposure and liability.
Yes.
And we learn from things like that every single day. I learn from things like that every single day, because when you're doing things in the public eye, no matter if you're an event host, no matter if you're a politician, no matter who you are, no matter if you're a podcast influencer and entertainment consultant, we as those people who want to be in leadership have the full responsibility to create a community of leaders.
Yes.
In which we are engaging civically, respectfully, and at our optimal behaviors to be able to create the peaceful, love, and joyful atmospheres that we all want for family or any social environment.
And if you think about it, you're basically saying, kind of in a way, to have mini Ned Zeeks running around everywhere, kind of just propagating.
You have to have people
Could
building
these people
their
be
little
funded?
armies.
Could people like Ned Zeke be funded by the city to kind of monitor and help control any type of pressure on violent acts or anything like that? Or is that something that would have to always be like free, kind of volunteer work?
Well, I think that we can make sure that Neighborhood Watch becomes an extension of the public safety dollars that are dedicated to the city of Detroit and all of its agencies. I believe we've already given enough dollars to the CVI initiatives that are in place. I don't want to strip them of any funding, but I do want to structure it a little bit differently so that the efforts and the initiatives and the activations that they're engaging in and the programming becomes amplified, and that we definitely, like you just said, and I never kind of said it like that, I kind of always said Neighborhood Watch, but I do want these neighborhood block clubs and block club presidents to be more proactive in doing the work that Zeke and others have already started to showcase and be the example of. There's no way in the world that our fraternities, our churches have not hit the streets for blocks and other issues that have arose.
Amazing. We've had, Chanel Dominique on, and Chanel was trying to run 313 weekend. Masonic Temple, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And a lot of people were saying it's very difficult for promoters and event hosts to book some of these, venues because of the fact that the venues are afraid of violent acts. We kind of covered this a little bit earlier, but she was able to have an event a couple weeks ago on Juneteenth, and it was at Hart Plaza, Heart of Detroit. And the security was phenomenal, and there was no incidents, and it was very peaceful and very relaxed. It takes a lot of effort, like you said. I've seen how much effort it takes to make sure that these things are happening. Is there incentives for people besides the fact that it could, it's a liability for them to have anything happen, or is there any way that the city can kind of help these situations where event venues are rejecting event hostesses from booking them? Is there a way to kind of have the city push and say, no, this is for the city, we're going to conduct these events regardless if you think it's safe or not?
Well, I think it's again, the village approach. And this is what I mean by it. They're at Hart Plaza with multiple families and multiple sides of the city coming together for one big event. First of all, back to your initial question, which is, can we fund the neighborhood block clubs? Well, I'm pretty sure Chanel Dominique had tons of community partners. She couldn't get the word out if she didn't have community partners. I'm pretty sure she's good with Icewear Vezel and other rappers in the community, to where they have community partners.
Yes.
Now the question is, how are those community partners engaged, and what are they doing at that event?
Yes.
That's how we create a village approach. Because if she can have those partners there, then the city should be able to come behind that and provide incentives for those partners to be there.
Yes.
And not only that, to make sure that policing and public safety gets just as much investment as the fun and the social activities that's transpiring. Okay. When we go safety first and we go about it maturely, then ultimately everything that happens on the back end can be protected and the liability and exposure be limited.
Amazing. Recently, there was an incident at a gas station, not recently, but I think it was maybe a couple of years ago, where a gas station owner or a gas station employee shot a person that was stealing from the store. I believe he shot him through some type of metal door or something, which makes it where the person who was shot was not technically a threat at that moment, I believe. Can you talk about that event? And that person now has been sentenced to, I think, life in prison. Can you break down that situation a little bit for us? How you perceive the situation and how to kind of regulate that? The owners of businesses in Detroit feel like violence or killing somebody is like the solution to theft or something petty.
Yeah, I don't believe that. This is where community policing comes into play. I can go to probably 30 to 50% of the gas stations around the city, and I can probably quickly identify the attendant, the community attendant, the attendant that was hired out of the community, who's either sweeping around or doing something, who knows a little bit about everybody, or they've hired someone out of the community, or they have someone regular that comes in. In addition to, they have police officers that constantly visit all these gas stations to check in. There's an issue with customer service, both down at City Hall and the culture behind it, that starts to overflow into the way that we do business as a city. And that's a problem, because that's a leadership problem, that we haven't infected and infused enough customer service strategies and programming into helping some of these different culture clashes that take place when you have all types of African Americans dealing with cultures that they're not familiar with, and that's where tension starts to arise. I've been in plenty of gas stations in which there might be a language interpretation barrier initially, but I'll work through it. And sometimes that can be, especially if you're Russian, deterring to re-engage. But sometimes, a lot of times, we just need to be patient enough to be able to get to understand each other enough to have those type of conversations. So to your point, I don't know the specifics, and I don't like to talk about specifics unless I know them about the shooting that took place. What I do know is that there hasn't been enough communication to the community about what's transpiring now. Yes. And there hasn't been enough rallying by our leaders to go there on the site to determine and to say to the community whether or not this is something that we still need to be mindful of, but also to draw attention and awareness to what happens so that it never happens again.
Right. Well, you can see, I mean, NetZeke, they kind of do take that approach. Like if you were a liquor store, and I'm just going to be pretty blatant when I say this, but like if you're a liquor store and you did something fucked up to any of the citizens in the city, their organization will come and speak to you and kind of help orchestrate the situation. Sometimes it might seem intimidating when they film it on camera, but sometimes it might be necessary to show these liquor store owners or party store owners like, hey, there's consequences for, just dismissing or disrespecting the city and the environment around you. So I worked at a liquor store when I was a kid. I worked maybe 8-9 years inside of a liquor store. There was amazing people that would walk through, and then there was people who were like, hoodlums, like where they basically would steal, they would have guns, they would threaten you, they would try to they would rob the store, they would hold us up, all types of situation where what happens at a certain point is you start getting scared as a person. Like you're an owner of a store, and then all of a sudden you're worried about your life every single day. While you're closing up, you're worried if somebody's going to pull a gun on you. There was an incident where somebody had shot at my dad, and then when my dad had to go to court for the situation, they said, we're going to burn down your store if you pursue the court hearing. And there was just so much fear when you would go to work. You would have people like, shout out my guy Riddy, that would come in and check up, open and close, and make sure we would come and leave. And he wouldn't charge us anything. He just did it out of love. He would call my mom Ma and everything like that and show massive love. But then there was people who would literally, like, you'd be afraid when you're leaving. So imagine going to work and you have all this adrenaline and fear and pain in your system, wondering if you're going to come back home, which only other fields that include that is like law enforcement, or like if you're in the military where you have that much adrenaline and fear, right? So the party store owners are always fearing their lives, and then at the same time they're worried about their business and people stealing from them and disrespecting the store and threatening their lives, and then they're looking like, okay, you are a threat to me right now. You, even though you might be a nice person right now, you're technically a threat because I'm so used to people being threatful. But from the people who are just normal people that are just trying to buy groceries, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, I'm just trying to buy groceries. There is no, don't compare me to these other people, or don't compare me to these small amounts of people that are doing this to you. I have nothing to do with that. And so that's where I think the chemistry is with these two people. It's like, I'm, as a liquor store owner, fearing for my life, and as a general citizen, they're just like, no, I'm just here to buy groceries. And then you have that small demographic of people that are like, no, I'm here to steal from you or threaten your life, basically. So how do you change these dynamics where, like, you kind of balance the system out to some degree, where it's like you're going to a standard city and just going to a gas station with nobody worrying about their lives on either end?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because there's a lot of neat ideas that I want to throw at that problem once I become mayor. What we're talking about is really the tug and war of what side of the fence we end up on as it relates to approaching every relationship, especially in business and in service. Like like I know, no matter who comes in that door, they can be the worst customer ever, but we're really about business, so we're really trying to conduct a transaction. They might cuss us out sometimes, but we're still trying to conduct a transaction because that's what we're here for, no matter how rude they are to us. Even though that can be our approach, that can be very overwhelming over the course of time, like you just said, and create a sense of total fear and really shrewdness, or really direct, forward, really progressive speaking when communicating with customers. But the thing that we have to remember as business owners is that, one, we represent our business, but then we represent the city's businesses. And if we're trying to create a culture across the board to where we want people to come in and do more business, then we have to be the nicest people in the world. I mean, truly, we have to be the nicest people in the world. And so providing those type of buffers for business owners, knowing the citizens and how their attitudes can flare, knowing the traumas that they experience, knowing what type of development and programming they have, knowing how much it costs them to really get to and fro in the city, and how mad they are already and frustrated they are. You really have to understand how we can make everybody get along, right? And that takes a number of different things. I sat down with the Detroit Police Officers Association today, and they talk about a number of difficulties that they have. And social media in this digital age has created a total number of issues that they normally don't even get a chance to see if social media wasn't in place. But they have to respond to all of those problems that we very well could prevent rather than pulling out our phone.
Yes, absolutely. Because people can create a narrative of a situation that's not really the situation. And then they can push it. It could be shootings. It could be anything. It could be a fight. It could be a music video. It could be something where you can take a narrative and you can push it out there, and the audience will consume it, and the audience will flame it up and make it bigger than what it is. And then the whole time that the narrative was created out of something that's not true or genuine, right? Even you've had to come across that, which recently there was like footage of basically what people are framing to be you being in the city of Detroit, and it looks like you're walking towards some women, and the women are just kind of like yelling at you saying, get away from us, or saying kind of like, oh, get away or move, or what are you doing? And you're kind of like approaching them. And the comments from the people who filmed it are basically saying like, yes, he approached us in a vehicle trying to talk to us, and then we just told him to get away from us, and instead of getting away, he approached us more so. And that the way that they framed it in the TikToks and everything is, it just shows you kind of walking toward them and trying to communicate with them. And even at one point they say that you smacked the phone out of their hand. Is this a narrative that was constructed by the people, or is this somewhat a reality of what happened?
This is a crazy predicament to be in, being a public figure that has tried to be a public figure from behind the scenes. First of all, I want to start by saying that I've seen several different videos across the internet, specifically on TikTok. My initial response to that is, one, I did not assault. I did not harass anyone. My day-to-day life right now is 24/7 campaign. I have 700,000 residents to get to, and I want to make sure that they all know that I'm running for the mayor of this city in order for them to make the most educated decision possible. Part of that is ensuring that they're going to vote, because there's less than 18% of voters that actually cast ballots, and even less than that in the primaries for the city of Detroit. So if I'm not constantly engaging, encouraging, inspiring and motivating people to vote, it's not something that can even hold my time. So that's all I'm doing 24/7.
Yes.
To address the incident, which I definitely want to do and provide some context for, especially my volunteers and supporters, because they've been both mad, angry, but also saddened that someone that they've known all their life, who's dedicated ever since he knew that his grandfather had put women in the pulpit to make sure that equity was at the top of the faith world. I grew up with my mother and my sister and 8 god sisters between 4 godmothers. My day-to-day life growing up was all women. The reason why I say all that is because when I approached these young ladies, who I knew were somewhat intoxicated because everybody had been drinking at a fraternity party that I attended in part of my campaign tour, and I attended a sorority party previous to that at the Charles H. Wright Museum. Upon leaving the event, my 20 years of promotions, entertainment, travel, and hospitality, including concierge, which the weekend company, which everybody knows, and I've been quoted for plenty of times, which is based out of Miami. I went into that hat. And that's one of the lessons that I did learn in this incident, which was I can't wear every hat all the time anymore. If I really want to represent the city of Detroit and the mayor, I cannot engage to bring more people into environments. I have to have other people do that. And if I want to do that, I need to do that with staff and security around.
Right.
Part of going into that incident was that I left my car running because there was actually several people that we were waiting on to walk up, and another lady driving a car following me that day. So there was a witness there. In addition to that, as soon as I got out to campaign and just give them a quick flyer, the young lady asked me to take a video of her. I'm in campaign mode anyway. I say, cool. Start taking a video. Another 2 girls walk up. One of the girls, who I know is intoxicated by the way that she's talking, which happens to be the one who recorded the video, says she doesn't want to talk to you and leave us alone. Well, the girl just asked me to do something, and now you're telling me something different. And most people would have just said, okay, and walked away. But in my years of entertainment and nightlife, events, the whole 9, I've been able to deal with groups of ladies before in a very amicably and very conflict resolution preventive style.
Yes.
And so to diffuse the situation, I did stay there. Now, what I didn't know was that she was a TikTok superstar and was able to amplify the situation by buying fake accounts to attack and to slander my name and to boost this narrative of assaulting and harassing her. Well, when she pulled out her phone after telling me to leave them alone, she immediately said that she was going to put me on TikTok. So at that point, I already feel like I'm with a short stick because I don't have any footage. And now she's screaming, assaulting and harassing and running back to her other group of girls. So that's where you see the first video of me still walking with her friend and her running back, laughing and saying what she said.
Right.
I continue to walk to the group who met us pretty much halfway and trying to find some type of understanding so that they didn't blow this up out of proportion and she didn't follow through with what she said. The situation started to go more left because I wanted to record what our discussion was before I left the conversation. Well, as soon as I pulled my phone up to record what the conversation was, they grabbed my phone and knocked it out of my hand. One of the young ladies was nice to give it back, and I appreciate her tremendously. But half of the time when I was trying to get it back, and for about 15 to 30 seconds after I got it back, y'all hit my phone out of my hand. Y'all got it. Y'all gave it back. Y'all know I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not touching you all. You're not touching me. Everything is cool. Well, the person who's trying to put me on TikTok keeps on pushing her camera in my face.
Yeah. Well,
at that point, I'm just totally shocked. Like, why does this have to go this way? When all I'm trying to do is tell y'all I'm about to be mayor, and y'all might not even vote or be in the city of Detroit to vote because of everybody coming to town for this event. And so, quite honestly, I walked away after I got my phone back. They continued to say those things and record me. I knew it couldn't go in any positive direction. And I just want to apologize to my supporters and my volunteers for, I would say, for going harder than what I should be going. I should have just stopped and gone home and go to sleep rather than keep on campaigning for 22 hours straight. I had been up since 8 o'clock. That's why people say my face looked, pretty indifferent. That's because I was pretty much tired I had been in 2 forums and things of that nature. So hopefully that gives enough context to everyone to help them to understand that my upbringing and my ministering in churches, my support of women and everything that they do, from business to equity to civil rights to gender rights in the workplace, this is the furthest exaggeration of my character that I'm happy to say that it's built something in me that will hopefully give Detroit one of the most fantastic leaders that it's ever witnessed, because I don't plan on getting to any situation twice or not learning from my lesson the first time.
Right.
We've totally locked down on some of those exposures. So
from what you're saying, kind of, and you can see a skew of videos on the internet of people kind of getting baited into, I don't know if you've seen the TikTok videos. Somebody will say, hold my phone and videotape me, and then they'll do something abnormal or something to get the person who's holding the phone in trouble. Is that are you saying that that's what happened? Are you saying that the girl took your phone, the girl told you to take her phone and videotape her, or did you use your own phone to videotape?
No, I'm saying actually that talking to the initial girl was fine. She was letting me pitch my campaign. She just wanted a video of herself.
Whose phone was it for the videotaping of?
Mine.
Yeah. So she told you to videotape her.
Yeah. She was, when I walked up, she was like, "Take a video of me." Yeah. I said I'm running for mayor, but all right.
Yes.
And so when that started, and she even texted me on Instagram and said, I want that video.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, but I've had a lot of different people at parties. I take pictures from women and men all the time, groups all the time. I'm in picture mode right now, so that really didn't startle me as the initial thing when I was telling her about running for mayor. It just didn't dawn on me that something like that would have happened. I think that's totally separate from the young lady who ran up and started to create a narrative prior to her even knowing anything that I was besides what her friend said was that he's running for mayor.
And she's the one who had the footage of you holding the phone, the TikTok girl?
Yes.
So the TikTok girl is filming you hold the phone, videotaping the girl that had asked you to videotape her because you were running for mayor. Or she didn't even know that information. I guess she just wanted you to videotape her for whatever reason. And then the TikTok girl basically framed a narrative that you were filming them and that you were following them.
That I was harassing them and assaulting them. Now, this girl that I'm filming, she's not running away. They come back, they talk to me. We've having multiple conversations. The issue at the time is that I'm having conversations with 3 to 5 people at one time.
Right on. The way that the girl had framed it, the TikTok girl that had framed it, I believe, don't quote me, but that she said you pulled up in the car and you were flirting with one of the women, and then when they rejected you or said no, that's when you got out of your vehicle and started talking to them. But your story with you holding the phone and filming the girl kind of destroys that claim a little bit, because it's like, why would that be the next move, to film them after they rejected you, which makes no sense, right? So is the story that she's making up basically that you were flirting with them, they rejected you, and that you started following them afterward false, completely false?
First of all, I'm 40 years old. I have no wife. I have no kids. There's a reason why I'm waiting for marriage. It's because I'm looking for the perfect one.
Yeah.
I'm looking for someone to build a team with. That takes a very peculiar woman, and I don't go about just that effort without planning or without being fully thorough in that decision.
Yeah.
So for me to engage any woman in a social manner, especially running for mayor of Detroit, is highly unlikely. I'm a minister. I'm a gentleman first. And for me to open every door that I possibly can run to for a woman, for me to help carry anything that a woman might have, but even more so, for me to have been working for the last 2 months to create an effort called onevibe.org that talks about safe nights and safe spaces, because we've had too many shootings and we have too many human trafficking cases that we don't know about. For me to have been working on that this whole time, and for that work to hope to be somewhat stunted, which we're going full force anyway with, for it to even have that type of label on me right now and have to speak to these things, it's saddening, because I feel like I'm one of the ones who constantly advocate for exactly opposite of what they're making me out to be, and I don't have any ill will for them to do it, for them doing it. They're paying for followers. They're engineering a narrative that, because of TikTok and the way that social media goes, it's working. But I'm not into arguing with them on social media. I'm into doing work that's going to help young women, young men engage in nightlife and other activations in the community and downtown, and stay safe at all times.
When people look at, and this is the last thing I want to talk about with this situation, just to clear things up for people, like you mentioned earlier, you had kind of a stunned look on your face. People on the social media forums are saying, look, he looks like zooted out, or he looks out of it. But you're saying it's because you were up all day and for weeks and weeks on end, you're promoting and campaigning. This situation might have just been a shocker while this was happening, I'm assuming, to some degree, where you realize people are trying to coercing you into being a part of their TikTok video. Can you explain kind of the facial expressions that were made, and why does it appear that the woman's phone was hidden out of her hand?
So let's deal with both. First of all, the women's phone was not hit out of her hand. Her friend who grabbed my phone was still very active in the situation. So in the process of me trying to understand what is going on, while trying to actually, while as you can see, I turn with my phone in my hand. So I approach with my phone in my hand. I'm not even approaching her. She's actually pushing her camera towards me. Her girl is coming from the left side and bumps into her at the same time, bumps into me. That's why we both go off camera, and she catches her phone. The issue that I have with breaking a phone or assaulting her, I haven't seen one scratch, one injury, seen any broken phone at all that could have been easily posted. You would think that if she said he broke my phone, she wouldn't be able to post like she's posting, nor would she be able to not produce some type of substantive broke phone. At least I would get this. She's not even creating a good story, because at least I would have found a broke phone, took a picture of it, and said, this is the phone that he broke.
Well, most of the comments so it's like 30-70, right? There's 70% of the people that are like, what the hell's going on? Like, this looks terrible for you. And then there's 30% of people saying, like, what is the actual story? Because you're just giving a snippet. You're not showing the full entire thing. You'll see a lot of times, like we're talking about from the initial part of this conversation, that people are able to snip and trim things and make things appear as one way when really they were another, which a TikToker has, a lot of... reason to do that. They want to go viral. That's like the whole purpose of it. So that's why people do those types of things. I don't take sides on things like this. I kind of just go, this is what we've been shown. I'm not really going to make a decision on it because there's no evidence of anything happening really.
Understand.
So hearing your side of the story does make a lot of sense, because it kind of matches to everything you're saying. Everything you're saying matches up to what the video shows. And then obviously talking to a TikTok person would be difficult for me, because to be honest, man, these days it's crazy what people will do to get attention or to create attention.
Well, I think the society that we live in is about clout chasing.
Yes.
When she took out her phone, the first thing she said was, your campaign is over. I'm going to make you a mayoral candidate.
She said that.
I'm going to ruin your campaign.
How did so she knew you were? Did she know from before that you were running for mayor? Or did she
introduced myself as running for mayor to everybody.
So you gave her a kind of a perfect.
I gave her all the ammo that she needed, right, to fuel the narrative that she wanted to create in that incident. And again, talking to someone that's intoxicated is definitely something that I can't do as a public figure anymore, because my mom told me, fools that argue with fools, can't nobody tell the difference.
Now I want to talk about the campaign that you're running for. What was the One Vibe you said?
OneVibe.org.
Yes. Can you talk about OneVibe.org?
Well, let's just be cut straight to the chase. OneVibe.org is an initiative that we started because I, along with others, felt that we needed to do more preventive work. We needed to make sure that all of our hot points, such as liquor stores, gas stations, and nightlife venues, start to create messaging that creates safety first with their consumers and their patrons prior to them, again, experiencing the social experience that they're looking to experience. And so what that looks like is pretty much allowing each establishment or business to create a curated QR code that will either be attached to their website or the OneVibe.org website that will allow individuals to see what numbers are very relevant to that establishment and what can they do to find either safety or anything that revolves around safety to create a safe night. Whether that's an Uber ride that's supported because you lost your phone or your card, whether that's some type of individual that you can talk to or contact person that will definitely help you that has been vetted, rather than you having to ask someone random or a stranger for help. There's a lot of things that we want to do with this campaign, but we're going to start talking about all the ideas next Tuesday on the live podcast that we're going to have starting at 6:00. I do want to say this, though. Misinformation is one of the biggest things that's killing us. And it's so prevalent in our political arena, but it's transferred and made its way into our local arenas and our local communities. And part of the issue that I think everybody is experiencing is nobody knows who to trust.
Right.
It's sad at this day and time that a candidate for mayor has to be framed as someone that is overly aggressive or someone who's done terrible things just because he's trying to get engaged voters.
Right. Well, this happens with every campaign. I mean, every single person goes through some type of scenario where they're framed to be looking in a certain way when the story is completely different. From mayors to presidents to people running for any type of candidacy, is like this is always going to be a part of somebody's campaign. It's super difficult to have a campaign that appears clean 100% because somebody is always targeting you. Somebody's always trying to get you to look negative to the people.
Let me give you two incidents. Senator Warnock in Atlanta, the mother to his children accused him when he was running. Jonathan Majors just got accused. The issue that I have is that if we're not constantly preaching family, then we don't have respect from gender to gender and in relationships. And if we can't approach relationships with giving people the benefit of the doubt first, and we automatically accuse them once we see them before they even get a chance to offer their experience or who they are, then we're automatically putting ourselves at a disadvantage to collaborate or do anything that's actually impactful.
There was a podcast guy that was kind of talking about what you're saying right now, and he said that basically if you listen to a podcast long enough, or if you listen to anything long enough, the listener will get disengaged in certain parts of their brain, but they'll be conscious of other things where somebody can kind of influence you to believe something. And this happens with TikTok too, because you're scrolling all the time. So eventually you get disarmed, and then maybe your subconscious is activated. Then whatever information you receive at that moment, you will take as a fact. Instead of actually consciously constructing and thinking like, is this real? Is this fake? Does this make sense? Does this not make sense? You automatically are just so like tuned out that you just assume what you're reading is a fact. So it happens all the time, and social media is making it more difficult for people to actually use their discerning mind to make decisions if something actually adds up or doesn't add up. When I looked at the video in a lot of situations, and not only just yours, I always look at them now like, is this real? Because I know how the game works, man. Like, I'm a fucking media podcast host. I was talking to thousands of people. I know that there's trickery that can happen within a half a second. I won't even include names of people that I've worked with where I figured out their entire strategy or whatever situation they may be is a farce the whole time. And it's just like, okay, you developed a media strategy to make something appear as one way when it's really another. Back rocking and rolling, man. I want to talk about a hit and run incident recently, and what part you played in kind of giving awareness to that situation.
Well, again, you asked me some of the things that we've been doing since our last interview. And one family had the desire and need to get someone more involved in an incident that involved their sister and daughter and mother, Juan Smiley. Juan was a victim of a hit-and-run accident on Gratiot and Grand Boulevard. A Saturday morning, riding a scooter down off of Gratiot, actually trying to get another scooter because the other one had ran out of battery, and she was with her boyfriend at the time, and a driver did a hit and run. What was interesting about that incident is that the customer service and the care that we gave as a city to that family wasn't up to par at the time. So I called 247 to come do a press conference to make sure that we, one, started to help the family and the police understand who was responsible, both, but also to make sure that we did a clarion call to the community to make sure that they wrap their arms around the family, and for the city to put more attention into wrapping their arms around this family and this community that had been affected by this tragic accident. Because I don't think it was malicious. I think it was truly probably an accident that they ended up running away from. And so I've been with the family pretty much ever since. We've looked at a number of other properties because there's a number of pastors that's connected to the family. And we're trying to get more community centers and more churches open in that area, or at least buildings bought by churches, so that we can really build the community up and help to create environments where these type of things don't happen. And so public safety for me as the next mayor of Detroit is going to be very critical. it not only involves being mindful of everything that's going on at nighttime with safe spaces and safe routes for kids during the daytime, but it also talks about the technology, the AI infusion to making sure that our streets are monitored properly so that when this happens, we actually have footage. We didn't have any cameras at Gratiot and Grand Boulevard, one of the busiest streets and intersections with probably the most data for accidents ever to be occurring since 2019. But is it a lack of resources, or is it a lack of intentionality and attention to what needs to be done? And so when you live in the city, when you understand what are the hot spots, as a mayor, you can't do anything but bring those values and bring those experiences to the table every day when making those decisions.
So how does AI get incorporated as far as making it, I'm assuming money budgeting is a part of the cost for cameras and for safety equipment and things of that nature, surveillance. How does AI help the cost of budgeting and the application?
Well, ever since I've been talking about AI over this campaign trail, and including blockchain, the city has taken note. I know the city has been calling different vendors trying to upgrade its systems, because I've been all over these mayoral debate forums speaking to the fact that our technology is not up to par. But even more so, I know that the city is wasting money with some of its vendors because it doesn't want to bring in that talent in-house, because it can't manage that talent, because it's hard to find principal senior architects that can do the type of work that they need done. And so when you can go get one of the best IT experts in the world that Google or Waymo just let go, you can build those type of systems in-house and save us money long term. Just think about it like this. How many apps do you pay for on your phone?
A lot, man.
Now, what if you built those apps for yourself? There's a difference in cost savings. Right. And so because I can come in and build those systems for us from a proprietary perspective so that we own our technology, there's so much more that we can do, and I'm just ready to do it. And so when AI comes into play, a lot of things are different in not only customer service, but engagement, but also awareness and public safety.
Yes. Cost effective. How cost effective would it be to basically redo the infrastructure of how things are delegated using these technologies?
I'll save $75 million my first year.
Wow.
That's how cost effective it would be. I'll save $75 million my first year.
And so in the long run, it's obviously
it's exponential after that.
Is the money available to be able to apply this? Like, would you be able to get the funding to be able to do this?
My teams can do it pro bono. It's so funny that I have one startup that's created some crazy technology for housing and land bank. It's really a system that the land bank should be using. They want to hand it over to the land bank right now. It's over $1 million worth of software. The city only has to pay some small hosting fees, which are not even anywhere near what they're paying right now. And ultimately, they will have a 10 times better system and actually get houses to the right people and transparency for the citizens.
Is any other candidate that's running thinking about applying these softwares and hardwares that you're considering? Does anybody else have the knowledge or awareness of these things?
No other candidate can even come close to even speaking to these type of things. It's because you see me on stage just having to help them turn their phones off. They barely know how to deal with their own technology as it is. The issue ultimately becomes, what is their talent awareness? What experts, what advisors do these other candidates really, really lean on when they're ready to innovate or to change a problem that's been there the whole time and that they've probably been aware of but haven't offered any solution for?
Yeah, you could see how it could transform things if there's a streamlined type of system that kind of helps people in so many different ways, man. You could see it. Like we talked about before, there like websites like MyWham, right?
Yeah, we talked about sites like that.
Yeah, and things like that in nature, but you have like your own system basically.
Yeah, the city will have its own system.
Do you have a name for it or anything? Or kind of
I just call it the Citizen Dashboard right now because it will be the foundation for all other city department engagement and all other things. See, I'm building a blockchain so that the citizens own their data, one, and then two, that the city can partner with the citizens in order to really help servicing take place, as well as incentivizing them living here, as well as making sure that we continue to create the programming necessarily for all of us to work together and do the neighborhood watch or do the things that we just talked about, whether it's pointing them to a crowdfunding, making sure there's a trusted source of information, starting with the city who should be leading the charge.
Absolutely. Would anybody hearing your plans say that it would affect their pockets even to implement your system because the system that's in place now is monetary valuable to them and you would take them out of the equation with your system?
Well, that's again why a lot of the corporate interests don't want me in the game. Is because over the course of time, we've become so numb to what they say things cost that we don't go or have any way of really investigating or checking the matter. We've never bought a system for a municipality or a city. So how can we argue with them on whether or not this is good cost? And our city council people aren't experts. So who can really review the budget or the real RFP when it's time to give it out or to be able to check the work?
Is there a way that you can demonstrate the use of the software using something that's like a smaller, or have you already applied it to something that showcases what value it brings? Have you tested the software in a way where you can use it for something smaller instead of like the city as a whole and say like, this is the proof of concept that this thing works?
Yeah. So what we're talking about is very simple. The software that we're talking about is very simple. It's what it's built on. Most software right now is not built off of blockchain technology. Blockchain technology allows for a whole lot more to take place. And blockchain technology is what's driving most of the systems in industries such as automotive and others that really help supply chain and help for experiences and quality control across the board.
Right.
So the best way I can tell you is this: it's not about the system, what I'm changing or doing differently or anything like that. It's about the foundation.
Right.
And the foundation is blockchain, and any app or anything can be built off of that, and it'll be easier and faster and cheaper to build.
There was a video that went viral recently of a mayoral. How do you say the word mayoral? Mayoral. Sorry for that, fellas.
No, you're good.
Kid element. It was a mayoral candidacy where they were doing a live debate. I don't know if it was a debate or what it was, but there was definitely different candidates on stage. And it was showcasing what had happened with the scandal. Somebody was questioning how so much money had got misplaced. Me and you have already covered the situation, but did you watch that footage? Did you see this debate happen?
Yeah, I think that was the Charlie LaDuff debate when Charlie LaDuff had questioned Council President Mary Sheffield. We already covered this.
Yeah.
Her answer and her response, I didn't really buy into all of it. I can see how she wants to separate herself from the conversation.
Can you give people a little bit of an overview of what the conversation was and your view on it?
Yeah, so there's a board that oversees all the decision making for the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. There's a lot of different moving pieces. However, the CFO and the management team that's hired individually is still at the discretion of that board and responsible to that board. When you talk about oversight, I don't believe in just appointing people or having people sit on boards for no reason. And if the board is not capable of providing the expertise to be able to help ensure that that manager or that CFO is doing things properly, and you can't catch someone lying to you, then you probably don't need to sit on the board. You're there for oversight. And so when you talk about mismanaging dollars, I believe she's also in the newspaper right now. The Free Press just wrote an article about her sending birthday cards to dead people on taxpayer dollars on yesterday. And so I don't ever get this. As much as I want to be mayor, and as much as I don't necessarily believe she's ready for this job, I will never say that she is not a positive person trying to do positive things. I never want to take away from any woman, any man, anybody, because I want to make sure that I recognize their heart first. And so I believe she has a heart for the job, but I think that there's some things that she's done professionally that have to be brought into question. But I think that's for all of us to look at. That's not just a Mary Sheffield problem, as she's talked about. That's a Detroit problem, because we need to ensure that all of those board members were doing exactly that. But if you want to be the leader of the city, you need to be the one at the table saying that before it happens, and you need to be able to foresee something like that coming down the pipeline. I'm saying there's two things you have to consider when looking at your leader: experience and courage. And of course ethics and morals, but the courage covers that. Experience, because you have to have enough experience and people around you that you can lean on to tell you what to do in a situation that looks funny.
When you're looking at, can you pull that
Yeah.
You can tilt it towards you.
Okay.
Like you see how I'm grabbing it and you just turn it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My bad.
When you're seeing, Mary's obviously, like, I've seen her work, I've seen what she's done, and there's so much positivity surrounding her. The community's supporting her, and she always has her hands in all the events and anything that matters to the city. Do you ever wish you could be in the same light as far as like how much support you get, or how much contribution from the city that you wish you would receive?
I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. I'm truly an authentic person that speaks for those who get overlooked. And so I would never want to trade spots or trade places with anybody. I believe that the cards that God deals me, whether good, bad, or indifferent, Scripture tells me that they all work together for my good.
Sure.
And so, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, from the history of mayors in Detroit, who do you think did the best job as mayor in Detroit?
It depends on what the baseline or what the competition is, right? The best mayor scandals could be a few of them, right?
No, the best as far as like, do you think it was like the best time for?
Well, you got to think, and we talked about this before. When you catch the job determines how good you can be or how good people look at you.
As with everything, yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of the mayors, if you've been a mayor for a long time, people draw conclusions, and mostly positive conclusions from it. If you've been a mayor during a time where growth has happened or big things have happened and things have changed, such as Duggan, then you get praises for that. And so it really you really have to look at the exact starting point and the ending point, which is very fuzzy a lot of times, because they come into situations where they have to unpack, and they never get to communicate to the public, this is where I'm starting from. Right. Because they're day one hitting the job running and having to deal with something that they might not even be aware of until 6 to 8 months down the road.
It's very difficult when you have a starting point from having to, fix a lot of problems that the previous mayor had putting on the table. So now you have to like fix things, and it looks like you're part of the problem when you're trying to fix it. Damn. So the terms need to be longer then, huh? Well, I can fix all these problems going on.
Well, I think there just needs to be more transparency and accountability, but it starts with us as individuals leading the charge and speaking up for what should be the most positive and democratic environment anywhere in the world.
For sure.
Let me just say this one thing. If we're spending so much time contributing and committing ourselves to amplifying a bad political environment, then we're going to ultimately not do the things necessary to engage people and get people back in the system. We shouldn't have less than 20% voting, and we shouldn't be able to let things like ICE take place and us not be able to speak to it collectively when they're policing in a very negative way.
How is ICE impacting Detroit?
ICE is impacting Detroit in one of the most mind-blowing ways ever, and it's so discreet and covert, but it's coming to light. They're definitely working and infiltrating parts of the police department, and I believe the chief is really working hard to eliminate some of those things. I do believe that because we have such a huge Hispanic and Latino population that we are a target. But I also believe that there is an opportunity for us as a city and as a village to rise above some of these things if we create the conversation to do so. None of our leaders right now are talking about ICE in any type of way. ICE has been here for the last several months, and they're constantly avoiding the subject because they don't want to have any soundbite to put them on the wrong end of this of the equation or the argument.
Because you're basically going against the president, right?
And to tell the world that having ICE here in Detroit is bad, and for the president to be part of that world is, and you're not speaking up, is totally no way, shape, or form something that is a positive factor or something that our leaders should have.
Maybe they're looking at it, and I'm not saying that this is like something that I would agree with, but maybe they're looking at it and like, we don't want to burn a connection with something that we're not going to be able to change anyway. So if we did burn that connection, trying to push that narrative or help this cause in a way we think would be opposite of the president, we lose connection with Donald Trump and the White House. And maybe that's what's fearful, because they might need to apply those applications or usefulness from the White House for other resources that they would be able to get those resources from the White House instead of burning that bridge with going against Donald Trump.
I talk to people that have been down to Mar-a-Lago. I talk to people that go to the White House. I talk to Republicans both locally and nationally. I'm not far removed from this conversation. When you talk about ICE and what Donald Trump and how he goes about dealing with subjects, initiatives, or what he wants to see done, he's not against you going against him. He's against you not understanding his philosophy or business behind it. If you cannot talk to Donald Trump like a businessman, then you don't understand what he's pushing for. Donald Trump comes from Vince McMahon, WWF, or WWE, whichever one you want to call it. And he comes from this apprentice world where he's showcased to the public what he wants them to see, because it ties into the business plan behind the scenes. Anybody can make something go viral to make sure that they get public opinion shifting towards the conversation, or at least entertaining the conversation. Mm-hmm. And so if I go to Donald Trump, and which I probably should have an invite soon as I get past this primary, Lord willing, but when I go to DC, the conversation isn't about, and he's going to take the meeting, the conversation isn't about, oh, you said you were against ICE. No, I said that I have well over 120,000 Hispanic and Latino in my city. 2/3 of them might not fit your criteria. So what is that going to do to my housing? What is that going to do to my public safety? What is that going to do to my whole city and the morale and the culture that I'm trying to create? Now, how can I help these families still operate under the policy that you have, but save my city at the same time? That's business.
Right.
Because when the major motor capital of the world continues to suffer, America suffers and the world suffers because we're not leading the charge. And so regardless of whatever international wars or disputes or tariffs or things that he wants to implement, me and him both know that when it comes down to it, regardless of whatever corporate interests he may or may not have, because I have none, I understand business and I know how to get the job done when it comes to offering negotiating techniques. Now, I didn't do too good in negotiating some of my past experiences that we spoke about earlier. I really wanted to diffuse those, but negotiating in business is something different. It's not emotion driven. It's not under the influence. It has green at the bottom, and ultimately, I'm the best one to do that.
When it comes to Detroit's assets and what it brings to the country and globally, monetarily, revenue-wise, what are the biggest assets that Detroit has that contributes even to for somebody like Donald Trump to care about what's going on as far as money coming in and out of the country and state and city?
Real estate. See, if you know the carrots that you got, you know what you can bring to the table. We're always worried about what we're giving to the surrounding counties, Oakland and Macomb. We're always worried about the state coming in and taking certain resources. But offering things to the White House or to the president that could be totally mind-blowing or game-changing and history-making has never been offered. But even more so, the riverfront being a port, the international waters, the Olympics coming to America in the next 10, 12 years to spur economic growth, to build new airports for surrounding cities. These are all federal matters. Even defense, when you start talking about how we look at aviation and air mobility, these are things that he understands and wants to get to. But he needs different areas around the country to be able to contribute to this success. And if you can create the environment for his plans to be carried out and for us to be a futurist, progressive, game leading country, to where we finally recognize that we're playing with China and those are our biggest competitors, then we can do the things that align with his plan, but still look out for the person on the bottom.
So the automotive, you would put real estate over the automotive industry as far as assets are concerned, or something that brings?
Well, I'm looking at advanced air mobility, regional transit as for infrastructure, as well as modular and housing manufacturing facilities, in order to boost and take care of the housing problem and the mobility problem, to get us moving and living better. That'll instantly start to increase our quality of life. And it doesn't have to always take place on a trillion dollar budget. It can be right in your community with small micro development authorities and business incentive districts put into place so that community starts to operate properly.
Amazing.
I just want to ask you this question.
Yes.
You've heard of a family office before, right?
A family office?
Yeah.
No.
A family office is something that millionaires go create to manage all their assets, because they got a lot of family members and they want to create a company where either one family member or they hire people to manage all their assets, whether it's a hotel or food chain, all their franchises, whatever. Well, it doesn't take you to have millions of dollars to still operate like a family office. You feeling me? We don't always have to have a downtown to be able to build a artist alley and a business corridor in a community.
Joe Rogan obviously knows one of the biggest podcasters in the world, and Woody Harrelson's obviously one of the biggest actors in the world. They both recently did a podcast, and they were talking about how Detroit has changed so much for the better, and it's looking better, and it's more of it's becoming a tourist spot. How are you grading the improvement of the downtown area as far as from maybe 10 years ago till now?
I think that anytime you have a downtown area that has done what Detroit has done, and it's still doing it. Like, all the buildings are not complete. We still have businesses suffering because we're building so much down there, and we have so much it's just only so much space. And then the space that starts to go out becomes residential very, very quick. And so we have to really spread out a little bit more. We have to take advantage of some of the other areas around the city. We have 136 square miles. You know how much downtown is comprised of? 7. That's almost 128 plus square miles.
Detroit's 136 miles?
136.
Oh my God.
Square miles.
Damn, son.
Yeah, so we can put 5 to 10 downtowns in the city if we really wanted to. But why do all that when we can create a modernized, futuristic community that starts to use technology and things that we've never really seen, but always dreamed of?
Amazing, man. John, is there anything that you wanted to touch on before we close out?
No, I just want to say this, man. I love Detroit.
Yeah.
I don't care how much it beats up on me. I love Detroit more than anything. I was built for this. And when I tell you that this experience has been nothing but what I expected it to be, which was God developing me and maturing me into another leader that even I can't really, you know, I can visualize, but I can't feel because I'm getting there. I'm ready for the big leagues. And if I have to go through a little controversy, misinformation, I've already been fighting the corporations, Mackinac Policy Conference.
What's that?
That's where the debate happened in Mackinac.
Oh, okay.
If I've been fighting media to allow me to present my platform, you know, and I don't fight. I'm a lover, not a fighter. And so for me to be in this position where I can show Detroit that love can conquer all and you can rise above every last situation that you're put in, I think that I'll be doing the best that Detroit needs, and I'll be doing Detroit some justice because I give them a story that they can finally believe in, that they don't have to worry about someone without integrity, someone without care, or someone that's not going to look out on their best interest, because as they will see over the next 30 days and hopefully past the primary, that I have started to create some of the most grassroots, impactful movements amongst women, LGBTQ, and others to really showcase how we need to all get to the table, plan together so that we can create the best environment to bring the most money, jobs, and homes into the city. And Kid L, bro, can't thank you enough, man.
Of course.
I appreciate you for just letting me share with your listeners again and share with my volunteers and supporters, because they really needed to hear that story as we've been able to cover it. But more importantly, they need to make sure that the leaders, the streets of Detroit, and the people that are trying to represent them are able to tell their story and give it to them without any extra sauce, and hear it straight from them. Because if they can't hear that, or if they think that other media agencies are playing into it, then they're not going to believe it, and that's the distrust, and that's the apathy, and that's how we don't win as a city.
That's the cool part about podcasting is transparency, and I think it's important. Like, again, shout out to the Joe Rogan podcast, because I think when the elections were happening, a lot of candidates were approaching him, and they were realizing the utilization of podcasts because it's uninterrupted. There's no agenda or bias to try to make anybody look any certain way or promoting it in any certain way. It's literally transparency and putting it out there. So many candidates have messaged me to come on the podcast. I think they're waiting a little bit closer to election time, but they're going on a lot of podcasts, and I think they're understanding the importance of them, because not only is there a lot of transparency and long dialogue, but also the newer generation is paying more attention to their phones than the news and or anything of that matter, which is, like you said, the amount of people voting is kind of sad, because even when I do look up interviews of Mary or other people running for candidacy, or even when Michael's running for candidacy, it's like you'll see the viewership is super low on YouTube, and it's like, don't you want to know as much as you can about the person that's running and that has a good chance of becoming mayor or whatever the situation is? So it is kind of shocking to see the low rate, like you're saying, of people that are actually participating. I wanted to ask you this: are people outside of Detroit allowed to vote for?
No.
So
only residents.
But you know what's interesting is, me and you talked about this last time, there's a lot of incentive from people outside of Detroit to have things go their way inside of Detroit, but they're not from Detroit.
Yeah.
How are they getting their vote across? Are they funding campaigns as well to push their narrative to help their businesses? Yeah, so that's super crazy.
Yeah,
it's like people that are not even from the city are finding ways to impact the vote and the election without even being a part of it. But the people that are in it are the ones that suffer the consequence if it goes the wrong way.
Yeah. And to your point, some have not been able to escape. Some have been stuck in Detroit. And then those who have been able to escape to a Southfield or Bloomfield or a Grosse Pointe or East Point or a Canton, when you have them who still own property in the city, if they're legacy Detroiters and African American, most African Americans don't donate to campaigns. Normally, corporate interests and other communities donate heavily to campaigns. So there's a very huge disparity in who's being involved, who's being spoken for, and ultimately, none of those dollars, of the big dollars, point towards any real African Americans. They always point towards other communities and other ethnicities that normally have corporate interests or some very large investment that they're trying to protect.
Man, John, this is an incredible talk, man. I look forward to when's the election day in August?
Election is August 5th. They
August
can go to
5th.
votebarlow.com for more information.
That's like what, like
30
man.
days. My birthday is actually, hopefully, depending on when you push this out, my birthday is July 5th. So that signals the 30-day countdown for me to August 5th. And we're just excited to see what the results say, because we've done our best. We're going to keep on moving forward. We're not stopping. No matter what comes our way, we're not stopping, because we're really trying to change history. And someone who could come in and really lead the city to the next level, I mean, the citizens have their opportunity to decide it. Even if I don't get through, I plan on continuing to give Detroit all I can. I'll take a few more extra flights, but I'll give Detroit everything I can, like I always have.
Before we sign up, can I read you a few Metro News posts just of current things that are happening in the city, just to see your perspective on certain things? Just real quick, I don't want to.
No. I like.
Community groups call on legislators, go door to door to connect with the youth after fatal shooting of a 4-year-old teen. It says, protect the zone. Detroit community groups, violence intervention leaders gathered Monday morning to launch a citywide response following a tragic shooting that claimed the life of a 4-year-old child and 18-year-old at Skinner Playfield near Denby High School. The initiative, called the Protect the Zone, brings together all of Detroit community violence intervention organizations in a coordinated effort to connect with the youth to prevent further bloodshed. These types of things, with this Protect the Zone, are you familiar with them? Are you familiar with what's going on, and do you agree with the way that these situations are approached?
So every time we get another shooting, we get another program. End Gun Violence has been doing the work. For them not to go get End Gun Violence to come over there and do the work means that now we have a dual message. Now that we're now split as a community, now we can't go attack the problem like it should be attacked with a unified agenda. That's my problem.
So you're saying keep it all under one umbrella instead of separate groups to address their situations?
We keep on addressing the same things under a different hat, and that's why people don't feel like anything is being done, because none of the names are sticking, none of the messaging is sticking, none of the programming, none of the engagement is sticking. We're having to join a new movement every other week.
You know, it seems to me, and crediting Ned Zeke and New Era, that a lot of people think, well, because social media can make you super relevant, right? And you can be the head of the organization, you can be the leader of it, which can bring you a lot of awareness, branding awareness, popularity, and it's more of an incentive for people to start a new group and be like the leader of it, or have a group of people be the leader of it, to kind of be like, we run shit around here kind of situation. Is that kind of the approach, or do you think people are just genuinely going like, we want to do it our way and you're doing it your way?
I think that division takes place when everybody can use pride or ego as the background reason, but then use I was here first as their forefront reason. That's part of the reason why we created onevibe.org, is because I want to go after all that positive content and put it under one house, not to own it, but to showcase it so people don't always have to go find out who's doing the newest stuff. A track record can start to be there of who's been here the whole time. Like, I don't see why New Era isn't the ones over there doing that. At least put them over there. Like, it again, CBI dollars, 3 organizations, major community block clubs. This is not the first shooting. Skilla Baby just got shot.
Yeah, I'm sorry to him, man, because I know you trained him in basketball, you coached him, and when you heard that, did it kind of like mess with you?
I reached out to the camp. Immediately, I already knew he was cool. I haven't been able to talk to him personally. I haven't really been able to get around him like that. I can't wait to see him in person so I can really, just share how proud I am of him and things of that nature. Anytime anybody gets shot, my brother has been shot with a stray bullet downtown and totally went through his thigh. Thank God it didn't hit no bone or really hurt him. But it's so many. it's so many accidents, and then there's so many incidents that happen that any of them happening is a injustice and isn't anything good for us, and that's why we got to work as hard to really prevent them from happening. But really, to the point about public safety and what that showed us,
Yes.
our babies are suffering because we're not doing our job. That's what I come with when I talk about leadership, and when I talk about wanting to be the mayor of the city of Detroit, is I can't accept that.
Yes.
I can't accept that. I can't let us continue to create a culture to accept that.
A large fire broke out at used oil recycling plant. That's kind of difficult. Yeah, another child is struck. Hit and run driver leaving Livonia. Sorry. There's a lot of child shootings, which is wild. But we kind of covered how you want to approach that. Foster care workers charged after 9-year-old dies. Child was hidden from outside world. CPS organized report. So I guess there was a Detroit couple who were licensed foster care workers has been charged in connection with the death of a 9-year-old boy who was prosecutors say suffered prolonged physical abuse and neglect while in their care. How would you handle the foster care system in Detroit?
That deals with wellness checks with the neighborhood police. That deals with us getting the bad actors out the city. One thing that will not be tolerated, and that's why I'm so against anyone condemning or talking about we have a bad actor, because we have so many bad actors, and the real bad actors need to get out the city. Whether it's a foster care parent that isn't taking care of them properly, whether there's an officer that's helping out ICE or helping out or doing something dirty behind the scenes. I had a woman come up to me, and it pains me to say this. It's so many women that are totally at a disadvantage when an officer pulls them over. And they have been exposed to some of the most horrific and some of the most mind-blowing requests and things to get them out of their situation, and officers do it and take advantage of it. Now, I won't ever say that it's all the officers, but when I hear stories like this over this campaign trail, I have to take that into consideration on how hard I work and how much I'm trying to make sure that we get everybody aware of the right things and the way that we're going to fix and approach and get to the solution.
Yeah.
You can't sit silent when it's time to speak up.
Sure. Man, like I said earlier, an incredible talk, man. Hopefully we can see what the future holds for you in a bright light, man, because I speak to you and I feel genuineness, and I feel like you're always thinking of the right things to do, unbiased, and just trying to figure out how to help the city of Detroit grow and flourish. And you have a lot of strategic planning and approaches that I think a lot of people might be neglecting, especially when we're talking about using AI and technologies to help build some type of infrastructure that can make things more easeful for people, and to really give like a new starting point to help people kind of facilitate their lives a little bit, using this technology, which is incredible. Appreciate you doing this, man. Good luck on the election. Everybody, John Barlow was in the building, man. Make sure to check out all of his everything that he offers and everything that's going on.